Welcome back, everyone. Sheepdog Smokey here. And before we get going, please remember to like and share this video, as well as to subscribe and turn on notifications so that you're the first to know of all new content as it is posted. We're going to go with an old format on this one, and we're going to read quite a bit of this because it's very important to get some of this verbatim. But basically, an FBI official was at a hearing in front of the House and managed to do something that probably happens a lot, but this one gets recorded. Managed to take AOC to school. Now, Ocasio-Cortez was at Tuesday's House Oversight Committee hearing questioning FBI Assistant Director for Counterterrorism, Michael McGarity, on why white supremacists are charged differently than terrorists. She also questioned if the FBI targeted Muslims for terrorism charges while leaving other races out of the specific charge category. Now, of course, this opens up the same way most Democrat hearings do. Why are you a racist? Why are you a terrorist? Why are you a white supremacist? Why are you a bigot? And they don't understand the first thing about what they're saying. But let's look at what happened when the questioning begins. First, Ocasio-Cortez asked McGarity why the deadly Emmanuel African Methodist Episcopal Church shooting in Charleston, South Carolina, don't need a comma after church there, and the likewise deadly Tree of Life synagogue attack in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, were not treated as domestic terrorist incidents. The Emmanuel AME church shooting of black Americans in Charleston and the Tree of Life synagogue shooting in Pittsburgh of Jewish people, that those were only designated and charged as hate crimes, not domestic terrorist incidents. Mr. McGarity, why did the FBI not believe these were domestic terror incidents? Asked Ocasio-Cortez. McGarity immediately responded that she was incorrect. That's not correct. I don't know who told you that we did, McGarity said, but we certainly had cases open on them. In both cases, and I wasn't there for the Dylann Roof case, but certainly in our own Department of Justice Civil Rights about 3 or 4 weeks ago, there was testimony that actually stated it was a domestic terrorism event, charged in the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division for a hate crime. Roof, a 21-year-old white supremacist, murdered 9 African Americans during the prayer service at the church. McGarity goes on to say, I was there for the Tree of Life. I will tell you, I remember that day distinctly. It was worked as both a domestic terrorism case and a hate crime case. It's still worked that way. Robert Bowers, who was armed with rifles, killed 11 people at the synagogue and injured police officers. He surrendered to police. At this point, Ocasio-Cortez responds, So you are disputing that the AME, you're saying that the AME, it was charged with domestic terrorism, Dylann Roof. One, she can't string together a sentence. McGarity then says, so you're using the word charge. So as I've said before, there's no domestic terrorism charge like 18 U.S.C. 2939A, B, C, D for a foreign terrorist organization. So what we do, both on an international terrorism side, with a homegrown violent extremist and domestic terrorism, we'll use any tool in the toolkit to arrest them, hopefully left of attack should it be after. Likely that hate crime statute will come to play through the Civil Rights Division as a charge because it's a good federal charge for us. In fact, on the record, it's stated that it is domestic terrorism. At this point, Ocasio-Cortez, to what she says is 2 conflicting testimonies, one saying they could have been charged, and McGarity saying there is no specific charge for domestic terrorism as laid out by the Congresswoman. McGarity whips out his highlighted DOJ documents to clarify. Well, I can go back to May 2019 with the Department of Justice on the record. That statement calling it domestic terrorism cases involving civil rights charges, including some of the most serious attacks in recent years. Dylann Roof, African American parishioners engaged at the Emmanuel African Methodist Church, James Field at the Unite to Right rally in West Virginia, and also Robert Ocasio-Cortez then cuts off McGarity, who is reading from the DOJ May report, and says, but the actual charge was the actual charge domestic terrorism. He then reiterates, you're not going to find an actual charge of domestic terrorism out there. If you look at Title 18, right? She then interrupts again, saying, well, the San Bernardino shooting or the Orlando Pulse nightclub shooting, they were designated and charged as domestic terrorist incidents. They were charged likely with if there was a connection to a foreign terrorist organization. It would all likely fall under 18 U.S.C. 23A or B. McGarity states, because the perpetrator was Muslim, they are. Doesn't it seem that because the perpetrator is Muslim that the designation would say it's for a foreign organization, she asks. No, that is not correct, McGarity said. That is not correct. Ocasio-Cortez then asked McGarity to explain. Homegrown violent extremists are mostly people we arrest in the U.S., he states. Self-radicalized, born in the West. It doesn't matter what religion they are. He then has to explain that the Orlando Pulse nightclub shooter was not charged because he was a Muslim, but because he was following a foreign terrorist organization. Under the global jihad, we charged him with international terrorism. That is correct. Is white supremacy a global issue, she asked. It is a global issue, McGarity responds. So why were they not charged with foreign terrorism, she asked. Why? Because Congress does not have a statute for us for domestic terrorism like we do on a foreign terrorist organization, like ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Al-Shabaab, he reiterates. I don't know if it was just me, but I had to go back over the testimony several times to understand where Ocasio-Cortez was heading with her questioning. I get where she was coming from, but it should have been better briefed on the subject before taking on McGarity. And that's exactly right, Sarah. AOC does not seem to get briefed on many things. She does not seem to care to. She goes into these things and she starts mouthing off, and when people contradict her, she interrupts them and rephrases and rephrases and rephrases and keeps saying the same thing. The crux of this is, why was Dylan Roof, or the Tree of Life synagogue shooter, not charged with terrorism? And McGarity was trying to, politely and professionally, using current U.S. law, to say there is no terrorism charge possible. Okay? This would be like saying, why is it that when this person who is not Pakistani robbed a 7-Eleven that was being worked by a Pakistani and shot him because he wouldn't give him the money, why wasn't he charged with terrorism? There's not a charge for that. We have to use actual laws that carry actual criminal charges. And AOC just would not accept it. I really would like McGarity to have looked at her and said, Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez, you're asking why we didn't charge him with a crime that does not exist. You see, terrorism is not the charge. The hate crime is the charge. The civil rights violation is the charge. In the case of Pulse, it was connection to a foreign terrorist organization. Wasn't about religion. Wasn't even about the action. It was because he was connected to a foreign terrorist organization. That's the same thing that people get charged with when they donate money. When they send money to ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Al-Shabaab, Hamas, Hezbollah. So if you're just sending money overseas to fund terrorism, you get charged with connection to a terrorist organization. If you're following them and you commit an act and they claim responsibility, same charge. That's what AOC is never going to understand. In the case of Emmanuel Amy, and in the case of Tree of Life, it doesn't matter what race the shooter was, and it doesn't matter what race the victims were. They're going to be charged with murder. They're going to be charged with hate crime because of the religion aspect. They're going to be charged with weapons violations, and anything and everything else a DA can throw at them. They're not going to be charged with terrorism because there is no such charge. That's like asking someone, why didn't the speeder get charged with driving while not wearing sunglasses? Because that charge doesn't exist. That's the entire point of this article. We have a 29-year-old child who supposedly has a degree in economics, yet still thinks socialism is wonderful, who does not understand the position she now holds, and demands that everyone who comes before the committee she sits on answer every question, and if she doesn't like the answer, she's just going to keep asking. McGarity flat out told her that charge does not exist. And she kept saying, why didn't you charge him? He should have said, because I can't do it. You write a law defining what domestic terrorism is, get it passed through both houses, get it signed by the president. When that becomes law and there is now an actual charge that I can use, I'll use it. But it doesn't exist now, so I can't use what I don't have. I don't have the temperament. I could not have been a witness before Congress in this, because I would have looked at her and I would have said, Representative Ocasio-Cortez, I really doubt that you paid attention much in your government, political science, or history classes, because, as I just said, that charge does not exist. You are sitting in the body that makes United States law. Therefore, this means Congress has yet to make a law creating a charge that you wish me to have used. When they do, I will use it where it applies. I would have probably been held in contempt for daring to disrespect the honorable Congresswoman, and honestly, I have no respect for her. It's a sad state of affairs when we have people sitting in Congress that couldn't pass a middle school civics exam, let alone high school or collegiate. Many of them supposedly hold Juris Doctorates, but they couldn't pass a simple exam on the Constitution. And these people very much antagonistically question law enforcement officials, demanding to know why they didn't charge someone with a crime that does not exist. And when they're told this, they don't understand the answer they get. New Yorkers should be ashamed that this young woman is representing them. And if rumors are to be believed, she's going to be primaried next year, but she'll still draw her salary, and she'll go on to write books and tour the news circuit and speak and make just god-awful amounts of money. All because she managed to primary somebody in a district no Republican could win, and now she embarrasses herself, her state, and the country regularly. Mr. McGarity, you have my utmost respect for not wigging out like I would have. But I've talked long enough. Let me know what you think. As always, remember to stay civil. We don't learn from argument, we learn from debate. Again, please remember to like and share the video, as well as to subscribe and turn on notifications so that you are among the first to know of all new content as it is posted. Until next time, everyone, have a wonderful day.